in laundromat with marketing, like my dad always says, people don't drive by a laundromat and say, I need to go do laundry.
Right.
People, might drive by fast food and, want to try a new establishment, but laundry, it's hard for somebody, just to drive by and think they want to go do laundry at a laundromat instead of doing it at their house.
This is the Planet Laundry Podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Planet Laundry Magazine, Bob Nieman. Today I'm with veteran laundry owner Travis Reed, who operates multiple laundromats in Indiana. Reed grew up in the business with his parents purchasing their first laundromat in 1985, right after Travis was born. He worked with his dad, Bryan, in the family business. And actually purchased his first laundromat in 2003, just 4 months after graduating high school. Today, Travis owns 6 laundry locations north of Indianapolis, with number 7 on the way this spring. Hey, Travis, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You're a busy guy. You got a lot of stores, and like I said, you got one coming up down the road here. How and when did the laundry industry really find its way into your life? And obviously, you were born into it, and I'm sure helping your parents in their store and stores. But how did it really kind of set in for you that, hey, this is what I want to do with my life as well?
It was more so by accident. My senior year, I had a knee injury that kind of prevented me from doing 2 different paths that I had on in my mind. One was joining the Navy. I was a junior when 9/11 happened, and that was a path that I thought was going to be option number 1 or 2. But when I blew out my knee, I couldn't go to a college for baseball. Then kind of go into probably, I thought I wanted to be an architect, but I probably would have found my way into mechanical drafting or mechanical engineering. But once that happened, me and my dad found a store that had just closed in Logansport, and it isn't one of the ones that I own now. But once that presented itself, and I'd always been my dad's shadow and decent with my hands and my mind.
Right.
And whenever we were looking at that store, a gentleman by the name of Lynn Brubaker came by, and he was ready to retire. And his 2 stores are the 2 that I own today. So it's kind of by accident, but it's been a blessing because I enjoy working with my hands and stuff. And honestly,
Mhm.
lately, I tell people that I would rather be the mechanic of the stores than the owners. Because at times,
Really?
as an owner, there's a lot of different things that you deal with, but mechanics in this industry can make a good living if you're self-employed to do it yourself. So that's kind of, the passion of the industry is working on the stuff. And it's
Mhm.
not all that general public is bad or employees and stuff. It's just
Mhm.
the mechanical side of it is what I love about the industry
Right.
and the numbers. I'm a numbers person too.
Right. That's your preference. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Well, obviously you're doing great at it. You've got the 6 stores. Do you prefer building from the ground up or purchasing existing stores as you've grown your chain slowly through the years?
I've really grown by purchasing existing. There was only one location that it was kind of a rehab. It was built as a laundromat, mainly a top load laundromat in like the early 70s.
Right.
It closed down. Landlord lost possession, or the real estate owner went into bankruptcy. I purchased it in 2011 when the town of Kokomo was in a deep recession due to the automotive ties that it was, and it was a lot of work. I had basically 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor, and just uh, started designing the store that I wanted to put in there.
Right.
And it was a lot more work than just taking over a location where
Hmm.
you get the ongoing cash flow that you purchase the day that you take possession, but then
Hmm.
so slowly renovate it into what a modern laundromat should be, which is more uh, I ideally say a 40 pound to 50 pound machine, depending on the brand, is the most common machine. And the old laundromats were top loaders, or they are built to have a bunch of 20 pounds in the business. And
Right.
existing, you can kind of get a tell by what the store is doing on its revenue, whether adding more bigger machines would help you, or if you're missing on the smaller machines, and replacing top loaders with 20-pound hard mount machines, I see is the best fit because they're a better investment for the long term. Soft
Mhm.
mount are cheaper, but you won't get the 15 to 20 years out of them.
Right.
So
Right. Like length of life. Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
and certainly there's pros and cons to both ways of going about it, building new or buying existing. And I know that one of the cons or one of the disadvantages you hear people say with buying existing is you're kind of stuck with someone else's plan or someone
yeah,
else's
yep.
layout. Have you found that in the stores that you've had through the years?
Somewhat. I only have one location that I still limited because it was designed for 22 top loaders, and
Yeah.
the height of the drains that leave the front load machines is too low. So I've incorporated drain troughs and then sewer ejector pumps. That is good and bad. When one fails, you can have floods and stuff. But
Mhm.
I don't own the real estate at that location, so going in and cutting pits in is kind of out of it. But
Yeah.
also my electrical is still in conduit below the floor. That is the bad part of that location.
Right.
But drain troughs can really help you out whenever you go to put in front load machines, as long as your main line is big enough to do that. And that's been the biggest helper with stores that I have bought have been designed for nothing but top loaders. Location number 2 and location number 4 were designed for about 42 top loaders. And if it wasn't for the drain troughs, it would be really hard to have that because the drain lines just can't carry all the water when an 80-pound washer dumps all the water. It's hard. But then again, with drain troughs, you have risk of, well, anything in a sealed drain or a drain trough, you can have debris go down and clog a drain. Yesterday, I had a 50-pound washer that had an F14. A shoe sole came out and it was
Oh,
causing issues with
yeah.
drag on the
Mhm.
drum. And then also, since I had one of the shoe soles, I went and ran my hand held snake down the drain.
It's
By
got to
chance,
be.
it was in my trap and pulled it out. I'm glad I did that because that's going to happen. Well, if you go on vacation, that stuff like that tends to happen. So there's been a lot of different things that can help an older store get into modern day, and it all depends on if you own the real estate. There's probably some limitations of cutting out the floors and also knowing where your electrical line is. This
Right.
summer I installed 7 20-pound Dexter Express machines in a store that all my electrical conduit was in the floor, and I missed every single one, and I was so fearful that I was going to hit one putting all those
Yeah.
bolts in
Yeah.
because
Oh, look at yeah. Nice.
so there are different advantages and disadvantages, and there's a lot of it as a newbie in the business to somebody, they won't know all that, and it would come with the relationship of a distributor. But sometimes the new store owners don't have the finances to get a good relationship with a distributor because they don't have the money to go and completely re-equip the store.
Mhm.
And some might want to pull that trigger, but if you don't know your market, you can
Right.
take a good opportunity and be struggling to where
Right.
your opportunities are very, or your success is very limited if you do too much too fast. But once you get to several stores, the risk isn't as bad because you have cash flows from several locations that help transform a store. And that's been my
Mhm.
progress where for a while I was very slow to expand because I was
Mhm.
in the comfortable state of getting all the debt paid off. And now through acquisition, I prefer is cash payment where I don't have to worry about if stuff goes down or if the opportunity goes south because economic environments. And
Mhm.
that's, during the recession or the recession, COVID, I know somebody that was in the rent to own business, and they were stating that a lot of people turned in their washer and dryers because they needed their couches, their TVs, everything that they rent to own except for the washer and dryer
Right.
because it's what they could afford to give up or had to sacrifice. And a lot of us probably did pretty well through COVID just because
Mhm.
let's say $40 a week for a washer and dryer at home, some
Mhm.
families realize they can spend a lot less at the laundromat. So,
Sure. It
and
was
that
one of the
was,
first things to go. Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, because they
Mhm.
needed everything else to stay at home and stuff. And it took probably about a year or so for those customers probably to get back on their feet and they
Mhm.
got their, washer and dryers and stuff like that back.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think I got way off topic, but
No,
there's been
no,
a
no,
lot of
no.
different things that I bought 2021 after COVID. COVID had nothing to do with the acquisition. Paul was 78 years old, and we've been friends for quite a while. And I always, hey, let me know
Right.
when you're ready to retire. and he wasn't ever ready. Now when I see him, he's glad he did, and he's
Hmm.
82 or 83 now, 81 or
Yeah.
82. And
Right.
anyways, your opportunities have. I'm skipping subjects, but it's like your opportunities of the stores that you buy depends on their previous store owners too, because older store owners
Hmm.
might not make that financial reinvestment because everything so expensive even before COVID. When they're
Hmm.
used to $800 top loaders, that's
Right.
quite expensive or quite cheap compared to what a front loader cost, even 10 years ago. So,
Right. Right. And they're at a different stage too, as far as
yes,
that goes, making that
yes,
investment. Sure. So
yep.
now remind me, your stores are in Kokomo
Logan Sport.
and they're just both in those two towns, which are
Yes.
how far from each other? Pretty close.
Yes, and I have a store of my father in Peru, Indiana, which from each other, they're about 20, 25 minutes. It just depends on,
Hmm.
Logansport, Peru are pretty close together, but
Hmm.
yeah, and that store came from an opportunity where a gentleman built in the town that my dad had his location. Um, had I think about 800,000 invested in it. 10 years later, and went back on the bank because the store really wasn't needed, but also the cost from a ground up construction was too expensive to be successful in the long term. And we acquired that one in May of 2016. It was a good opportunity for my dad and I to have a store together. And that market is totally different than mine because Peru doesn't seem to grow much. Logansport and Kokomo
Hmm.
are growing towns in some sense. Peru's been struggling to find industrial that would increase, I guess, increase the jobs that would be helpful for the town. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess in a lot of ways, the laundry business is you're in the real estate business,
yes,
as we're talking about, right here. Do you enjoy that aspect of it, and how does that fit into your plan as far as real estate? And do you have other real estate? Have you dabbled in other things, or I don't know.
I do enjoy it because I only have one renter that rents off me. It was part of the 2011 purchase of a
Mhm,
Kokomo or in Kokomo of a laundromat building
mhm,
and a bigger building. And the renter that I have now is great. If I had other properties, I wish I had personalities and respect of him in all of them. Where he pays early, and if he's late, it's because he hasn't caught me at the laundromat to give me give me
right,
rent payment and stuff. And all the others, I'm self rented to myself, so I'm my best landlord and my best tenant because a problem doesn't occur and then I
mhm,
forget to tell the landlord and it gets worse over time. So,
mhm,
and there's sometimes that I do I do rent three locations. My most recent purchases of 23 and 24 to make the laundromat purchase, he desired to keep the real estate for 5 years. And he's a good landlord. He improved store number six. He put new windows and stuff in it, spent quite a
mhm,
bit of money improving it. And that's the thing where if you have a good relationship with a person that's your landlord, I think it's a lot better than a big company where you have to, fill out a repair order or something like that. But
right,
and really the real estate becomes your best investment in the business because say an owner wants to retire like Wade did. Wade is downsizing. He still has an asset that he's going to collect rent and he has nothing to worry about of equipment issues and stuff like that. And, when you're ready, you can still sell the real estate off. And depending on when you got in the business, the value of it's probably grown quite a bit. Of course, there's
mhm,
hesitations acquiring real estate that has had dry cleaners in them in the past, depending on when they were constructed and stuff. But
right,
I think it's a better investment but every town is different. There are some towns you couldn't afford to buy it, and it doesn't make sense because your opportunity to get into the business is so much higher. And unless you have the capital to do so, it's
mhm,
almost impossible to own your real estate everywhere. But in my markets, it's affordable, and it's something I always say when I'm ready to retire, I'll sell the laundromats and keep the real estate. But some
mhm,
of it, if the right opportunity came along, I'd sell it all off because you can wash your
mhm,
hands of all the responsibilities. But
mhm.
it remains an asset that should hold its value pretty well as long as you take care of it and
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, what do you look for in a laundromat? Again, if you've purchased quite a few and you've been in the business a long time, what factors make a good laundromat for purchase?
Of course, everybody will say demographics, but also your
Mhm.
competition within the market, I would say,
Mhm.
because in Kokomo, when I first got there, there were 12 laundromats, and I believe there's only seven of them today. And that was because a lot of the laundromats that went out of business or decided to close down were mainly top load. And so when you find the location, I guess the state of your competition is one of the things I look at.
Mhm.
And I don't consider myself like a big powerhouse. It's just I'm able to work on my stuff as if I have the parts on hand, I can keep my stuff operational. And then I've looked at buildings to convert, and it just wasn't going to make sense with some of getting the right size utilities put in place. And in Kokomo, it's where I acquired two of my nearest competitors, or two
Mhm.
competitors, which was Paul and Wade. And it was so much cheaper to acquire them and then renovate it slowly
Yeah.
versus, finding a building that you have to totally gut. And but
Mhm.
then there's some operators that they don't want other people's headaches or neglect. But then again, some of them, they may be the hands-on owners or they may be owner investors. And,
Mhm.
if they're gonna have just money tied up in it anyways, they might, spend the money because whether it's borrowed or their own cash. But when it's
Mhm.
owner occupied or when it's owner operated, I think sometimes it's best too when you buy off somebody because they may have taken better care of it versus somebody that had a manager just let things go downhill.
Right.
Um, and it's, every market's different. Kokomo, I believe the last I looked to have information to present was like, Howard County has like 80,000 people.
Mhm.
That's not super large, but when you compare it to Miami County and Cass County, where Peru's in Miami County and Cass County is where Logansport's at, there's
Yeah.
quite a difference in populations. So me acquiring Wade's store for what I paid for the business and what I have my purchase price, it wouldn't make sense to build a new store. The building alone would probably cost you let's I don't know, $100 a square foot, so $300,000.
Mhm.
But I also, since I'm a numbers guy, look at the property tax difference between an existing for 40 years and a brand
Right.
new build. That has happened in Logansport, and my competitor is paying like 9,000 a year in property taxes. And
Mhm.
then the building I rent, it's like 2 grand, and the building I own is like 2 grand a year.
That
So,
makes all the difference.
it
Yeah.
does. And it's
Mhm.
like, so I guess I went off topic a little bit, but knowledge is key in a lot of things. And you can
Mhm.
always say you have $2 million to build something. What you
Yeah.
could build today versus 10 years ago has drastically changed the cost of equipment and the cost to build your building. But then when you go to spend that today, you have to turn a lot of quarters or do a lot of revenue to make it worthwhile. Yes.
Mhm.
Everybody's I guess how much somebody else can spend to get into the business is different than somebody that's, leaving a factory job and only has 100 grand to invest. They might
Right.
be able to buy an existing store
Mhm.
and that is perfect for them. But other store owners don't want that small opportunity. But I think
Right.
the smaller opportunities have been better for a lot of the small guys in the industry. And
Mhm.
having six, I still don't consider myself a big operator, but I have friends that can say otherwise if they only have one or two. But their
Mhm.
two stores could be 10,000 square feet combined and have more pieces of equipment within them than what my six have.
It's how you look
And
at it, sure. Yeah.
yes, and everybody's opportunity. Hey, I bought it for 700,000, and I'm thinking that's crazy. But then again, they can do $1 million a year uh, gross in that one location or two locations. So I think
Mhm.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you look for in laundromats, or maybe are there any factors that would make a location a non-starter for you?
In a way, some towns I think being on the main road isn't as appealing to being in where the people are. Like
Really?
Logansport has a main drag that I'm on one of the main roads, but I'm in a residential area
Mhm.
where there's a two pizza places on the blocks north of me, and that's about it. But you go up another mile, you have all the fast food and retail. So I would stay out of those areas, and other operators would love to have those. But then again, I get, and then there's also being in a residential area on the dead side of town that may not be as beneficial either, because if some people don't even know you exist that live 2 miles away because they always go the other direction. In laundromat with marketing, like my dad always says, people don't drive by a laundromat and say, I need to go do laundry.
Right.
People, might drive by fast food and, want to try a new establishment, but laundry, it's hard for somebody, just to drive by and think they want to go do laundry at a laundromat instead of doing it at
Right.
their house. So,
Yeah, it's not an
um, it-
impulse purchase.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Good, good, good. Well, you're a young guy, Travis, but you've been in the business a long time, so you're a veteran. How has the industry changed since you first got into it 20 years ago?
Um, Top loads stores or stores with top loaders only
Mhm.
either don't exist or aren't existing or are on their verge of extinction.
Mhm.
Large equipment, I believe some manufacturers have 120-pound machines that are coin operated. And if you would tell an operator in the 80s that would exist, or even in the 90s, they would
Right.
think you're crazy, because some of the stores in the 80s and 90s, a 50 or 60 pounder was the biggest that they thought they would ever need.
Yeah.
Um, a lot more technology I desire the technology where I have a laundry card store and then two fast card stores. That having the opportunity to take debit credit card is perfect. But some of the stores, the other store that I bought in 2021 that is still got 12 top loaders, the
Mhm.
clientele in there that tends to be the older, they might not care to have the technology. So I guess alternative payment systems are really the competitive edge of 10 years ago. It almost has to be in the business today for anybody that's just graduating to 50 years old, having the technology, because they don't want to use quarters.
Mhm.
um, the three stores that I don't have alternative payment systems in, I know after this year of owning two stores for almost a full year, I would like to adapt that into it because I can justify the cost of it. And that's one of the things, somebody can throw that on machines right off the bat. And depending on what brand you go with, it can be $300 or $700 a machine. It's the technology is definitely, you're either up to times or out of date on that. And then, reversing technology on dryers, it used to be not nobody had it except for some of the OPL sector, and that is very beneficial for anybody doing a lot of bedding and stuff.
Mhm.
Like in the Kokomo market, there's a couple hotels that if they have machine issues, they come to me. Yes, having two 90-pound washers and two 80-pound washers are
Mhm.
beneficial for them to come in and get quite a bit done at once, but also having reversing dryers help them get in and out the door. And then
Mhm.
we've also had a nursing home come in. So the larger equipment, and then also they like that they're not sending employees to a store with $300 cash and they have no way of keeping accountability on what was spent where.
Right.
And have them being able to use a debit card, credit card, because when that's happened, normally an employee would say, hey, so and so's here, we need their credit card limit removed from $125 a day,
Yeah.
because that's normally what the laundry card system I probably is defaulted at. So I'll remove that limit so they can do whatever laundry is needed. And with quarters, I would hate to be those employees dealing with all those quarters
All
or
right.
of that facility. And
Yeah.
so, and again, I guess technology is key. You went from the only technology put into the industry is a payment system. Now, a lot of the manufacturers have touchscreen and everything can be app based. A lot of the leading manufacturers have that. So before is somebody else was offering those payment systems. Now with the manufacturers having them coming out of the factory that way, that shows that it is very necessary.
Mhm.
Touchscreen can be a give and take, where I have them at a couple locations,
Yeah.
and not everybody respects your property like they would respect your own. And yes, there's
Mhm.
durability in some of them, but when it comes out the outright abuse and vandalism, nothing can
Mhm.
really withstand the touchscreens being abused and stuff.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah. And anything else as far as how the industry has evolved over the years? I
I
think you
guess
kind of hit the main.
yes, and I would say also owners that have 1 or 2 stores have probably scaled to have a couple more, and hopefully it's within relationships of the business that when other owners are ready to retire, they're ready to, take over because they've always respected each other. Um, and like small stores are almost non-existent anymore. So I would say more multi-store owners versus single store owners that have been veterans for 10, 15 years because
Right.
sometimes store owners only want one because you can have a really good successful location and not really need multiple. And
Mhm.
some are satisfied with that, and it's a easier way of life versus having 6 locations that have
Sure. Yeah.
different areas that you have to take care of the daily maintenance or
Mhm.
repair daily abuse as well.
Right. Right. Yeah, but certainly the single store owner and the smaller stores are fewer and far between these.
Yes.
It's certainly a trend. Well, by the same token, how has your laundry business overall evolved through the years?
Mainly, like I answered the last subject, is
Hmm.
a lot more technology, and on some of the coin side of it, I see that the bill recyclers are very beneficial because through COVID, I was almost running out of quarters, and it was either apartment laundry people getting my quarters, other retailers getting my quarters. So like whenever you have the ability to, everybody has a $20 bill when they come to the laundry, but not everybody needs $20 in quarters. So on the changers, the bill recyclers was nice just because they're self-replenishing, and other brands have had, I guess, the bill breakers or uh, where you can throw in a 20 and get $10 in quarters and two $5 bills back. But I think that is key in some markets because you may have a business that only does $5,000 a week, but you may need $7,000 in quarters a week just because you have so many that could walk out the door. Last thing you want is a changer to run out of quarters. And then when you go to collect, you lost 1,000 or two. So on the non-technology, well, I guess it is part of technology, but the bill recyclers in some markets are very beneficial. I have desires to add those to the coin only stores, but at the expense of them, I could get some card readers and be up to date on technology versus just putting a $10,000, $12,000 changer in. You could get some card readers. Yes, you can't do the whole store with card readers for that price, but so I guess that if that answers the question.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, it does. Um, uh, as we've kind of turned the page into a new year here, where do you see some of the greatest opportunities for today's laundry operators in 2025 and going forward? Where do some of those opportunities lie?
I think it's gonna be people wanting to retire. That's my opinion is,
Hmm.
yes, there will be new stores built in markets that already have a lot of laundromats, but if the population isn't growing, everybody's going to have to raise their VIN prices to, be more
Hmm.
successful when somebody else takes some of your business. But
Yeah, yeah.
um, my opinion, it's always my growth has been through retirement. And there's always
Hmm.
going to be whether somebody's 60 ready to retire or somebody's in
Hmm.
their 70s finally ready to retire.
Hmm.
I think that's going to be some of the better opportunities um,
Hmm.
for some people. And then
Sure.
also making the decision to get away from a 20 to 30 pound washer being
Hmm.
like your bigger machines and throwing in the 50 pounders. I would say throw a lot more 50s in and then, go from there on adding the 60s up to the 90s and stuff. But
Hmm.
retooling is always
Hmm.
key in some stores where,
Right.
in the industry, the term zombie mat has been used quite a bit in the past 10 years and they
Yep.
still exist, but there could
Hmm.
be, opportunity for a store owner to get into the business buying one of those. And it's just as long as their competitors haven't been multi-store owners to begin with, the
Hmm.
store just may be, existing because the store owner has been shelling out personal money to keep it open
Hmm.
for, I don't know, whether it's the lease, they paying the bills to keep the business from going out of business because still obligated to a lease term or so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those are great points. And, as you bring up, purchasing stores from maybe owners who are looking to get out of the business, it kind of brings up the topic of relationships in the industry and developing relationships with owners
Yes.
who are currently in there, maybe looking to get out. How is it important is that to you, and how have you gone about that, developing those relationships?
Whenever I went to Kokomo with no arrogance or anything like that.
Mhm.
And one of the main store owners was Paul Hardacre. And I would say at one time he had 7 stores in Kokomo. And whenever we had met one of the first times, he told me I did a really good job. I built it too nice. And I would say, yeah, over time people do vandalize and stuff. But after a year, after about year two, I was ready to acquire one or two of his locations and stuff. And then that was key on, buying what I consider store number 4 in 2021 when he was finally ready. Because, everybody has different personalities where everybody's likable or everybody's not likable. But within my markets, we've always gotten along.
Mhm.
There's not been a lot of attitude or, I don't know how to explain it, but
Yeah.
the relationships that you build, it's like if they don't have anybody else looking to take over their business when they're ready to retire, they're looking for a buyer. And both of like Wade and Paul have had desires to sell to me when they were ready. And
Mhm.
it's, because it's their legacy one way or the other that is being taken over. Um, it's yeah, that's a long topic
That's
of legacy factors where, they don't want to see the business be bought by somebody and ran out of business because all they wanted to do is come in and collect quarters. They may
yeah.
have had it for 30 years and they wanted to live
Mhm.
on because they had a lot of sacrifice in it. And then also, whether it raised their kids and put their kids into college and stuff like that.
Right.
But
There's a lot of history, and I think legacy is the perfect term for it. And again, they don't want to sell to just anyone. They want to sell to someone they trust will be a good caretaker and a good
yes.
steward of that legacy, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and that's real quickly, it's like the Frawhiker family, they got started in Warsaw in like the ice business, and that would be Wade's grandparents, and then Wade's dad built several laundromats through the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Between Wade's operation and his father's, there were, I believe, 17 locations in Indiana. Wade's father passed away in 21, and now Wade is, I've acquired 2, and I'm
Mhm.
committed to buy another location. And it's
Yeah.
like, but we've gotten along from day one. But there's also
Mhm.
been a great relationship where Wade's father, Junior, was a mentor to my dad in the early 1980 or in the 1980s. So there's been a generational relationship. Wade was in business in Logansport in 2002, so the year before I got started, and we've always gotten along.
Yeah.
And it's like now that he's downsizing, we're in more communication now than we were before. It was just in a way passing of the torch to somebody that they want to see carry their legacy on and stuff. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Hardacre family was in the dairy business in the early 1900s, and Paul got into the business around 1985, and he sold his last store that he owned to me. The other locations were a lot more leased locations where he didn't have the opportunity to sell due to, not owning the real estate and stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah.
relationships are the key thing for my growth, and it's always been a friendly relationship. And it's been more important to have that because I'm 40, no children. So it's like my legacy is I have to find a buyer to it. And I hope that whenever that time comes, it's somebody that, will carry it on uh
Yeah.
how we all desire, have them scale from say 6 locations to 12 or whatever,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and run it as with a passion instead of just a side business because, they don't want to be hands-on. I would prefer a hands-on person. And that's
Yeah.
also, I would say, Paul and Wade enjoyed
Mhm.
that or respected that out of myself. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's a great point, Travis, that you bring up, and probably something that people don't think about. It's maybe just the relationships is kind of an undervalued factor in the whole thing.
yes,
So
yeah.
yeah, no, great opportunities. I guess by contrast, what are some threats that are facing laundry owners in the new year and going forward?
Well, every market is different, but there's a lot more brand laundry brand companies that are building stores, acquiring stores. So some of it is investment money from, hedge funds or venture capitals to outright manufacturers coming into markets, whether it's building stores or acquiring. So I would say some markets are at threat of, Tide laundromats are being built in some markets. Will probably never be in my area, but some markets are at threat of corporate money coming in and taking over, or putting a hurting on people that actively work in their business and stuff. So
Right,
people
right.
with bigger pockets is a big threat.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Or is
Nope.
that okay?
Yeah.
That's a big one. Uh, what's the biggest mistake that you've ever made in this business, if you care to share?
At times, not scaling fast enough, where
Okay.
trying to get the debt paid down, where if everything goes downhill like it did in '08. Because in 2008, I acquired my second store, quit a good job, and then months later, the recession happened, and the sales that was doing before it all were cut more than half. And it's like, what did I do? If I would have stayed at the factory job, I would have still had that paycheck to, not
Yeah.
make things seem like I made a bad decision. But
Hmm.
so at times, scaling too slow, but I'm involved in every aspect. I do my own maintenance. I'm my own accountant. I do payroll. So maybe also not delegating enough tasks to other people that I could scale more if I wasn't working on all the equipment and stuff. So
Hmm.
it's
It's hard to let go of some
yes,
of
it
it.
is. It is. And there's some areas with it being a lot of all cash. You never know who you can and can't trust, because some people can put on a good front but steal you blindly. And with my systems, it's like each week I write down the changer amount so I know how much cash should be in my own zip bag. But that's also at risk of,
Mhm.
theft. Somebody
Mhm.
breaks into a vehicle and wipes you out. At least you have some paper documentation of what was existing. So,
Mhm.
um, and yeah, I would say not delegating enough task of my own to somebody else would be a
Right.
big
Right.
mistake. But
I think that's a
uh,
common one. Yeah, sure.
yeah, and it's like I enjoy working on the machines, so and it's also one of the most expensive thing that outsource is having somebody work on your stuff, and it could be something so
Absolutely.
simple. Getting like I'm about an hour and a half from Indianapolis, and I think at one time it would be $250 to get to the person to your door, and then depending on what they're doing, it's like wow, they could be there for an hour and it costs you several hundred bucks, and it's something
Right.
simple. There are some
Mhm.
store owners that can operate like that because it's not their sole income, or it's just fine with them because they don't desire to work on the stuff. So I think
Right.
I think those are the key things, is being too conservative and also not delegating other tasks.
Mhm. 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 Where Travis, where do you turn for advice, or where have you turned for advice? Who have been your mentors in this business?
Mainly my dad, and that is one of the main mentors. And through some of the other is just having friends in the industry, having, let's see, started in the South, became friends with Todd Fenner, Laundry Owners Warehouse, and then of course Brian Wallace, just different people that have different experiences and knowledge of the industry.
Mhm.
But like from day one of the industry is my dad. And
Mhm.
then outside the industry, just other top names like, Warren Buffett, just different things, that can be positive influences. And it's, not everybody leaves the same shadow on a person that, we can be around the same person for an hour and somebody doesn't pick anything up off them that
Yeah.
um, makes them feel smarter or helps them out with whether it's the industry. Because they're Laundry Owners Warehouse first trade show that Todd, Josh, and Oren had, they flew me down there because they
Yeah.
felt I would be beneficial for their store owners in their market, whether it's hands-on knowledge or I remember air conditioning be one of the main topics that a handful of the store owners asked me about. I'm like, well, I don't
Mhm.
know anything about your guys' building, but there are air conditioning units that are wall packs where you don't have to have a bunch of duct work. So, there are some things that Todd found wisdom in me, and I went down there and tried to help his store owners. And it really wasn't about me helping them buy the Dexter brand. Yes, I had quite a bit of experience with that brand. So it's
Mhm.
like, well, a mentor to me can also lead me to be a mentor, to him or his own customers and stuff. So
Right.
that'd be one of the main things. And that happened also in the Chicago market with the Frankian family, where the knowledge of the business can be beneficial for store owners that are
Mhm.
been in it for 20 years, but they still have 20-year-old machine. Pulling the trigger to replace, whether it's
Mhm.
going from 80G to 100G to 200G, extract machines. So I guess some people might find me a mentor, and I find it hard to believe. But then again, it's all in what you value and somebody else's, knowledge and stuff.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it goes both ways, certainly.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what does it take to be a successful laundry operator? And I know there's many ways to run a laundry business these days in different types of markets and different types of operations. But in general, what does it take to be successful in laundry?
And I would say also, depending on what you're coming from, if you're a factory worker earning in this area, say 40 to 60,000 a year,
Hmm.
and you acquire a store that provides another 20 to 30, some people would find that very successful.
Hmm.
And a lot of it, as long as that new income doesn't change your lifestyle to the point that, you're buying things that you really shouldn't be buying. But to be successful, in my opinion, is, make sure all the bills are paid and you have money for future growth, where, maintaining a lifestyle that is realistic would be key, I would say, on, being successful. Because there are some people, you have a super successful store for 5 years, and then somebody down the street builds a new store, whether it's 20, 30% bigger, or, your technology of 10 years ago. And I know I said five, but, you know, just staying up to date and also being relatable to your customers. I have a lot of customers that, they see me in there. I'm not at every store every day, but, being successful, people want to be relatable, whether it's, um,
Yeah.
you're at your store working on something, and they may make a comment. You work on this stuff yourself? I'm like, yep. Why don't you hire somebody else? I'm like, this is what I love doing. And that's the main thing. Everybody has their own term or what they feel is successful. And
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
feel I'm any more successful, let's say, at 7 stores as I was at 3 stores, because at 3 stores, I was only 27 when I had 3 stores. But
Mhm. Mhm.
also at that time frame, the laundry industry wasn't viewed upon like it is now, with social media putting on how much revenue comes through machines. The laundry business, when I first graduated, I told people I have a laundromat, and it
Yeah.
didn't seem like the wise decision when I'm only 20 years old, because it's like other friends are going to college. So it's like,
Yeah.
what makes you successful versus somebody else is, your peers can kind of determine who's successful or not, I would say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's very subjective. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, you've given us a lot of advice here this afternoon. What advice do you wish? What advice would you like to share with others that you wish you had when you were first getting into this business, just getting out of high school, or just jumping into it? What advice can you share that you wish you knew?
Uh, well, are we talking coin laundry bit or laundry business mainly?
No, we can go
Okay.
anywhere you want to take it.
Set a fair amount of money aside that you could spend on something material today, and, save it for opportunity money, no matter what that could be. And, nowadays, laundromats tend to be the number one thing that everybody wants to get into, it seems, through social media after COVID. But a lot of it is, living a humble life and keeping the material stuff to a minimum until you reach a level that you can truly sustain that type of lifestyle. And, my brother my brother always would joke in my 20s that I had moldy money, because it's like, well, I didn't want to spend it until, I'd always waiting for another opportunity that would be better than buying a new car, material
Mhm.
things and stuff. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's how some people have scaled, is when they're the small guy having the opportunity money available, whether it's just for the down payment or also an outright cash purchase.
Mhm.
There's a lot of operators that still borrow money because the accountant says it's it's, wise on the accounting side of it, but I don't like debt just because I know what had happened in the past where everything got cut in half. And if you can't sustain the
Right.
business surviving because it got cut in half and then your own lifestyle, keeping material purchases to a minimum, or ridiculous ones anyways. So
Right.
hopefully that was wise
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah. No, good one. Hey, last one for you, Travis, and I do appreciate your time today.
You're welcome,
Um,
Bob.
where do you see your laundry business in the next 5 years or so?
Um, well, whenever I was younger, always wanted 10 laundromats. But now that I have one with my dad, six of my own, and one on, I will probably, if the opportunity isn't right, I might stay at this, but also self-invest or reinvesting within the locations where at one time I thought I wanted another location in Logansport. Well, that was not wise, but I reinvested in the equipment. And some of the best success in the Logansport market was reinvesting within the store. And I was able to satisfy the customers with, well, top loaders and 100G spin machines. So I would say reinvesting more within your stores if you have equipment that really needs to, I thought I'd run equipment for 20, 25 years because it could have that lifespan. But
Hmm.
if you're stuck in the old 100G thing, 100G extract machines, getting the people in and out, the innovation of the 450G or around that equivalent has been popular the past couple years.
Hmm.
And I think maybe dabbling into that might be something in the next couple years at the very successful stores, so you can get people in and out faster. So
Right.
I guess I'm maybe slower to grow to more stores, but more
Hmm.
heavy to reinvest within.
Hmm.
And I just wish customers would not put 40 something minutes on a dryer or an hour, even though it takes 30 minutes to
Right.
dry or 20 minutes to dry and stuff.
Yeah.
You can educate, but they have to listen. So,
Right. Right.
and also, implementing more technology to know that I'm not running out of quarters because, you can have a changer send you a text message every day, like I do have at one location. And I know
Hmm.
that I have enough quarters on reserve that I don't have to worry about something. Because that's the thing, if you live a half hour away, not knowing if your changer's working is key, especially if you have a 24-hour store and it might be unattended completely or partially unattended. That
Yeah.
changer can go out of service 20 minutes after you fill it
Yeah.
because somebody put a bad bill in it and stuff. So
Right. Right.
hopefully that answered that topic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hey, as I said, that's everything I had. Is there anything maybe that I didn't ask that you feel that you'd like to get out there that people can learn from your journey in the industry? Anything that you'd
Just
like to share?
I would just, I mean, back to relationships are key because, one family that I did not mention, but it was Doug Grice and his son Dan. The Grice family was my first true distributor when I
Hmm.
started reinvesting or investing in my stores and stuff. The knowledge that they have and just relationships.
Hmm.
And it can go the Grice family, the Marcinetti family, whenever you were that one or two store owner, they took their time, to invest their time in you. And they don't know where your future goes, whether you're just going to have the one store and never buy a product of theirs. But the relationships are key in this industry, if you ask me.
Hmm.
A lot of things have changed um, I would say that's it. I've always
Hmm.
been a brand loyal person as well. And it's just like the key thing, those relationships with those people, because
Yeah.
you can have some problem come up and you've never had it. And
Hmm.
you call Laundry Concepts or, the Grice family with some,
Hmm.
because you could be a store owner that's never had the issue and they've experienced it and they walk you through it. The
Right.
stress that you're fearful on a Friday at 7 o'clock at night or Saturday is key. So I would
Yeah.
just say relationships are key in this
Yeah.
industry. And,
Focusing on that and
yes,
strengthening those relationships. Absolutely. Don't
yes.
neglect that. Hey, Travis, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today because I know you're busy, but this
Thank
has
you,
been a
Bob.
blast for me. It's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. And again, thank you for your opportunity. And thank you, longtime friend Brian Wallace, for the opportunity as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks for joining us on our podcast today. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to Planet Laundry at planetlaundry.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube.